Good morning. You've all now met Mr. Singer. About a month ago, I agreed to do a TED Talk at the middle school conference, thinking that I would be maybe in a large room, sitting at a table with some other folks and have some conversation with some middle level educators. And then about 2 weeks ago, I got a text at about 10 o'clock at night from Mr. Singer that said, "I need your headshot and your title. We're up to 800 people." So I breathed really deeply and said, okay. And then I got another one that said something about 1,200 people, and you're opening the show. But after meeting the man who's following me, I'm glad that I'm opening the show and I don't have to follow him. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today from my heart about the heart of teaching. Louder, please. How many of us sitting here in this auditorium today have thought about leaving the teaching profession in the past, let's say, 5 years? My guess would be that many have. Quite possibly, we've stayed because leaving simply wasn't feasible financially. We weren't sure what else we would do. We were too vested. But at the heart of all of it, we weren't thinking of leaving because we no longer loved to teach or lost our passion, but because the role, perception, and reward of the profession we chose has so drastically changed. Recently, teachers have been under attack as incompetent, selfish, and self-serving. Aggressive reform, not renewal, efforts are underway based on a set of generally false assumptions about teachers. Beliefs about motivation. Increasing competition will assure higher levels of teacher and school performance. Intentions. Teachers are selfish and self-serving. Short days, weekends off, vacations, vacations, vacations. The nature and difficulty of the work of teaching. Anyone can teach, even a computer screen. Evidence of performance. Test scores tell the whole story and are meaningful representations of effectiveness. The power of schooling. Setting standards and tinkering with curricula can solve persistent social problems. Responsibility. Teachers are wholly responsible for student learning. The driving assumptions of school reform are grounded in a punishing rather than a positive psychology, a view fixated on weaknesses and deficits rather than learning and growing. The result is the creation of a culture of unhappiness. Risk-taking is discouraged. Everything is controlled and micromanaged. Teachers are left feeling anxious, filled with self-doubt. They have less hope and feel as though they lack control over their work lives. The teacher, once viewed as a person of practical wisdom and someone of deep compassion, has been replaced by the expert, leading to some troubling shifts. Shifts from one's capacity to make responsible decisions on one's own to one's willingness to adapt to decisions others have made for us. Decisions that follow the logic of technical imperatives. The purpose becomes dictated by technological demands and possibilities. Teachers are told the best practices they must employ in their classrooms. Everything is based on a performance factor, creating an environment that is more stressful and less satisfying. Authentic social relationships are replaced by judgmental relations of a competitive nature. Vulnerability is enhanced, trust is undermined, work becomes joyless. Where educational ends are test scores, dominated and narrow and uninspiring, educators find investing fully in their work difficult. Their aspirations lower and their performance flattens. Teachers become carbon copies all the same. Their sense of self no longer exists. The problem within this reform, well, there are many, but the main problem within this reform is that it fails to take into account the clientele. The young minds and bodies, the humans that we serve, are left out of this formula for success. Human beings, children, are simply not something to be affected by data. They are creatures that need to be affected by interactions with others possessing deep compassion and practical wisdom. Human beings are self-directed and adaptive beings that, when they can, choose behaviors that make them feel fully alive, behaviors that make them feel competent and connected, behaviors that allow them to express themselves creatively and uniquely. And herein lies the heart of teaching. To teach is inevitably to be in the hope and happiness business. Hope and happiness are essential conditions for life and learning, and most especially for the well-being of those who live with and for the young. That's us. Why do you teach? When asked that question, you may have a handful of educators who admit it is for the time off. We can all agree it is not for the paycheck that disproportionately reflects the level of responsibility we have and higher education required of us. It certainly isn't the hefty Christmas bonuses. When asked why we teach, most of us, the vast majority, teach for intrinsic reasons. The desire to make a social contribution, to shape the future, to make a difference in a child's life. No one in the history of time has ever answered that question with, to increase student achievement based on data derived from standardized tests written by non-educators using methods others have deemed to be best practices. Teachers teach because we want to have an impact on the world. We want to affect something positive. And that is based on the young people we teach. They are the heart of teaching. Effective teaching is based on emotion, not data. The most effective teachers possess two qualities. They are hopeful and they are happy. To be hopeful is not to expect a perfect outcome. Hope implies a deep-seated trust. Hope allows people to persevere, to be resilient, to exhibit grit, one of the foremost predictors of future success. Hope cannot be taught by those who do not possess it. There are two elements thought to capture the essential nature of hope: agency, a sense of successful determination in meeting goals in the past, present, and future, and pathways, a sense of being able to generate successful plans to meet goals. The habits of hope include persistence, resourcefulness, courage. These habits enable us to identify real conditions, to explore new means and abilities in a knowledgeable, skilled, and imaginative manner, and to formulate and adapt means and ends. Therefore, possessing hope leads to a perception of relatively high probability of goal attainment, a focus on success rather than failure, a sense of challenge, and a relatively positive emotional state, happiness. As educators, we need to possess hope, and facilitating agency and pathways provide us with avenues to encourage hope and happiness in our students. Teachers must model hope. Wait, I skipped a card. It's my first time doing this. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. And now you're all sitting there wondering what transcendental plane I'm living on, especially since I'm skipping cards. My colleagues at Maple, who know me well, are thinking I have taken the yoga or meditation thing way too far. I began by describing the current reality and perception of teaching and followed directly with being filled with hope and happiness. Seems like a massive contradiction. I realize this is no easy task. Both hope and happiness have a great deal to do with stress, with the persistent and daily challenges of living, and with how those challenges are met both for the educator and the student. Greater hope follows a life of engagement, of being connected to and investing in others and their well-being. Those who possess hope can handle failures, setbacks, disappointments, because they maintain that sense of agency and believe that they can create other pathways to success. Teachers must cultivate hope. We must model hope. We must guide students in setting and prioritizing goals. We must help students to locate and pursue alternative solutions. Teach them how to get around intractable problems. Demonstrate patience and be realistically encouraging, helping children to learn to pool their resources and work together to realize their goals. Infuse hope within the curriculum. Use stories with high hope protagonists with whom children can identify and who serve as models of hopefulness. Use failures to cultivate hope. Share stories of failure and triumph, biographies of Churchill, Lincoln, Gandhi, Mother Teresa. Assist children in confronting their limitations and support them in their efforts to move beyond present capabilities and habits. Create a safe environment with a culture of being valued and trusted, thus creating the opportunity for laughter and feelings of well-being. To reiterate, a sense of basic trust is imperative to cultivating hope. Without trust, hope is extremely difficult to attain. So, given the current social, economic, and work conditions we face that I opened with, how are teachers to be helped to avoid disenchantment and remain hopeful themselves? To maximize teacher happiness and build hope, our administrators must provide work conditions that ensure and enhance agency and pathways, encourage engagement, invite and inspire transcendence, encourage teachers to do what they believe is best for children, trust, encourage teachers to build their strengths. Hopeful thinking flows from core self-beliefs that the individual is capable of generating pathways and of sustaining the energy necessary to pursue goals. Developing hope, especially when it is weak, is a slow and demanding process. And here you sit thinking, yes, Amy, that all sounds wonderful, but all too often things sound wonderful and that is where it ends. Practicality doesn't match up to reality. The demand for better test scores, data, and student achievement are real. They are the expectation. I can't just go back to my classroom feeling all hippy-dippy and think that will be acceptable. And here I stand telling you that I am proof positive that you are wrong. You see, I've had the unfortunate, yet fortunate, experience of being the lab rat for this theory. Based on many factors, test scores, parent-student response, administrative reviews, I was an effective educator for many years. The aggressive reform movement I spoke about earlier came to be, and I did my best to embrace the changes. And in the midst of collecting data, incorporating best practices, implementing new strategies, my life fell apart. My marriage was ending. I had to relocate. My son's life was thrown into disarray. My health was poor. Stress and anxiety consumed me. I had ulcers exploding in my stomach and was told that I could die without immediate medical attention. I turned to alcohol to escape, never slept, lost a tremendous amount of weight. My body shook constantly, and my mind was never focused. I lost hope, and I had no happiness. So there I was, showing up every day and playing the role of the expert, maintaining data and doing all the right things. But I had no hope. And the happiness I presented was most certainly nothing more than a facade. Most would have said I was the consummate professional. I always had it all together. I was on every committee. I was the pilot for these new best practice methods. I did it all. And you would think, based on the tenets of this reform movement, that my test scores, the indicators of my effectiveness as a teacher, would be the best of the best. And they were not. The scores, as well as student engagement and happiness, indicated the least successful years of my career. Go figure. But all the while, there was someone who knew of my struggles. And that person consistently talked to me about hope and that happiness existed. I often wanted to strangle that person because they clearly didn't understand. But the consistency of that message and the clear belief and deep-seated trust in my ability to find my way out sparked that sense of agency, and I began to search for the pathway. Ultimately, I found my way back to hope and to happiness by focusing on the clientele, the heart of teaching. And oh yes, test scores reflected a much more effective teacher. So yes, I do yoga and I meditate, but I've also participated in the scientific method on this one. I am proof positive that if you go back to the heart, the rest will all fall into place. The bottom line, taking the heart out of teaching results in exactly the same result as taking the heart out of the human body. Without the heart, the body perishes. Without the heart, education dies. Goals of raising test scores without carefully attending to the kind and quality of life lived within schools by teachers and students, and whether or not that life encourages and enables happiness, is an empty accomplishment. It is counterproductive. Data of a different kind are called for, of teacher and student investment in learning, and of hope and happiness. And so I encourage you on this day where you are surrounded by your peers, all of whom are ready and excited to share with you whatever is at the heart of their teaching, to reflect on your heart. Attend those workshops today that align with what fuels your passion. And next week, return to your classroom with the intention to trust yourself and do what brings forth hope and happiness for you, for your students, and for your peers. Believe in yourselves. Believe in each other. Believe in our clients, for that is the heart of teaching. Thank you. Thank you. Certainly humbled. Thank you so much for that. So enjoy your day. Get inspired. And it's my pleasure to now introduce to you our feature presenter, who will definitely have you doing a lot more laughing, no doubt. So if you would give a warm round of applause, please.
That was fantastic.